It is a day we are thankful for temporary structures and permanent hairspray. A mutters moving day here on Saturday at Oak Hill alongside Kyle Porter, Rick Gehman. I am Joe Musso bringing you all the latest. And let's go right there, taking a look at the latest as action is underway in round 3 and numbers are being made here at Oak Hill. You might need an umbrella. Rainy moving day in Rochester, 3-way tie at the top entering Saturday. And let's all have a taste. Backwards hat Rory McIlroy entering the chat early. The kid is here. Shades of Griffian. This one was back to the pin location and sticks it. Things softening as the rain comes down here in Rochester. McIlroy taking advantage. 1 under through 3 would make another birdie. He is into red numbers. Started the day even. Now 2 under. A smile on the face of Kyle Porter. Brooks Kepka coming off a sterling 66. Will it be silver on Sunday? We shall see. He saves par here. Kepka remaining at 2 under, chipping from just off the green there, his third shot to start the day at 1. Bryson DeChambeau, his playing partner. We're getting the heavyweights side by side a couple years late, but both exchanging blows, pars that is, early on. The leaders, Scottie Scheffler, Corey Connors, and Viktor Hovland, all underway as well. Connors cutting a par at the first. So we are underway, and there are moves to be made as Oak Hill perhaps giving up more than it has in previous days. Rain soaked throughout. That rain is expected to subside around 5, 6 o'clock, which could make for even more opportunities for birdies throughout the late stages of moving. Kyle Porter, Rick Gehman here in the mix to weigh in on what we've seen thus far. And I want to start with the weather because we have seen plenty of it. From a scoring standpoint, Rick, what are the numbers telling us about what Oak Hill is right now?
Yeah, it's causing some more fits than usual here at Oak Hill. Already a difficult golf course. Now you've got that thick, wet rough, which is difficult to judge shots out of. And at the moment, there's only 4 holes playing under par, and one of the par 5s, not one of them. So that's usually a scoring opportunity out here on the tour in a major championship. I will say, though, Joe, it is coming down. We saw early this morning when the rain was super heavy and the guys that just made the cut were out at Oak Hill. It was well over 74 in terms of the scoring average. We are trending now down under 73 KP, 72.9 at the moment. The big boys are out trying to take advantage of the softer conditions.
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind for this round, for the third round on Saturday, is Rory talked about this on Friday. He said it's really difficult to shoot 67, but it's also pretty easy to shoot 72, 73. I think what the rain does and what the rain causes, I guess, with this rough, it brings double and triple into play to where it becomes a little bit easier to shoot 75, 76, 77, something like that. We saw Thomas Pieters try to hit a ball out of the rough. It went about 10 feet. So I think there's some bigger numbers brought into play, Joe, by some of this rain. I think the guy that avoids those big numbers will be in good position going into Sunday.
Bogey avoidance an issue right off the bat for Scottie Scheffler, who cards a square at number 1, so the plot thickens even further. The leaders are away, and it sort of begs the question, what horse is fit for this track as we take a look at those top 3 names that came into round 3 at 5 under, KP?
Yeah, you know, I thought it would be Scheffler. You say bogey number 1?
Bogey number 1.
Bogey number 1. So kind of coming back to the field a little bit. You know, he only made 2 bogeys over his first 2 rounds, Rick. So to start the third round like that, I thought he was the guy that at least mentally was best positioned. He's won a major championship. He won the Players earlier this year. He doesn't shoot himself out of golf tournaments. To me, he's the best position to win this major championship. I think that's pretty obvious. I think the odds say that. But it would be kind of fun, not for him, but for the rest of us, to see him come back to the field a little bit and maybe watch Hovland or Rory or Bryson or Brooks chase him down.
Scheffler's already hit his bogey quota for the day, so 17 more holes, he should be fine without making another one. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Viktor Hovland in these conditions is pretty interesting, right? He's one of the longer, straighter drivers of the golf ball, and he does what we call trackman golf really well, which is the ability to just go out and hit any number that caddy Shea Knight gives him, right? If it's 162, he's got that. If it's 199, he's got that. He can just dial it in, take advantage of these receptive greens that we didn't necessarily see earlier in the week and see how far he can take it, right? He's also a guy who's not really afraid to hold his breath, right? And if he gets going, gets a couple under par, he's going to keep trying to put circles on the card as opposed to getting into the clubhouse as quick as possible.
And Rick, you noted a day ago sort of a cozy pairing with Justin Suh alongside. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what that relationship is?
Yeah, I mean, these guys came out of the same class. If you remember when they were all introduced coming out of college, it was Morikawa, Wolff, Victor Hovland, Justin Suh. Victor spent a lot more time in Las Vegas recently with swing coach Joe Mayo. That's where Justin Suh plays out of, a TPC Summerlin. So there's a good vibe, good connections there for both of those guys.
KP, anytime the content king is in the mix, we got to create a little of our own. Bryson DeChambeau, with his second best major positioning through 36 holes in his career, second to only that win at Wingfoot. Today is going to be a test not only of his game, but of mental fortitude. How do you assess that side right now?
Well, he seems dialed in. You know, we were talking about this on Friday night. This is not a guy over the last 2 years who has been locked into major championship golf. He's been YouTubing and long driving. I mean, I take it back to really sort of the inflection point for me was the 2021 Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits. The very next week, he goes to he goes to participate in the long drive contest, and he hasn't really contended in anything since then.
Contended in that long drive, though, KP.
He did contend in the long drive, but in any major championships or big events since then. Obviously went over to live over the last year or so. But, Rick, it's been fun for me to see him dialed in again because he's one of the great characters in golf. He is the high king of content, and he's a great player. He's somebody that, even before all the weight gain and the speed training and all that, rose to number 9, 10 in the world, and was a tremendous golfer in college as well.
It's a lot about engagement, not YouTube clicks engagement, but like literally being engaged in a golf tournament, being focused on a golf tournament for Bryson DeChambeau, and major championships get that attention. I'm not necessarily sure live events do. I'm not necessarily sure anything else can get his juices flowing, but you get the focused version of Bryson DeChambeau this week at a golf course that should be really good for him. One of the comps that we were talking about before the week started was Wingfoot, and obviously we know that that's where Bryson got his one and only major championship to this point. So this is a good setup for him. You've got an engaged, focused version of himself. I think this is a guy who's not going away anytime soon.
As if he needed anything else to lock him in further, he is playing alongside his former foe. They said they've buried the hatchet. Brooks Kepka, even through 2 holes. Talk to me about Brooks, because it was the quietest 66 round of the week for Kepka. I mean, we saw 66 by Bryson there on Thursday, 66 by Brooks on Saturday, and it sort of flew under the radar. What are your expectations, KP, of Brooks in this moment? Crowd that seemingly will support him maybe in that battle of big men.
Yeah, the battle of big men, yeah. It's really interesting because I was not – this sounds weird to say about somebody who has 4 major championships and 16 top 10s in his last 30 major appearances, but I was not necessarily a believer in Brooks Koepka at majors coming in. He was horrible in them last year, didn't have a top 50. The Masters earlier this year, when he finished T2 with Phil Mickelson behind Jon Rahm, it felt like it was either going to be the return of major championship Brooks or just a one-off. And so I actually, Rick, thought he had a little bit to prove over the first 2 rounds, and to me, he proved it. That 31 he shot on the back 9 on Friday to put a 66 on the card, that to me proved that Brooks Koepka is back in, hey, nerds, the king is here mode, and I'm going to go win a 5th major championship.
Get out of here, dorks.
Yeah.
This is my major championship. Yeah, the idea that he was able to close in the way that he did is exciting. To know that you can go out and shoot a 31 in 9 holes at Oak Hill is powerful enough. And speaking of power, Brooks has unlimited power. And if you thought the rough was thick on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, now it's thick and wet.
Yeah.
And being able to literally move your club through this stuff, make clean contact with the golf ball, almost an impossible feat. You got to be one of the stronger guys out here to do it. Good news for Brooks.
Good news for Brooks, and there's been some good news early on here for Rory McIlroy, who is 2 under and approaching the toughest stretch of the golf course. KP, the fact that he made hay, backwards hat and all, on these early holes, and he's going to get more opportunities if he does make that turn with a clean card. I mean, do we need to temper ourselves here when it comes to Rory? I know it's hard to do that,
Always.
but the storylines they write themselves, the moment, there are few bigger than the PGA Championship this week. We know Rory's trying to pick one off before we get to Valhalla, the site of his last major championship. Next year, PGA going to be at Valhalla. This moment, you like to use the phrase "too big to write." Are we approaching that if Rory does rip a couple more off here early on?
I think a Masters win would be too big to write.
Okay.
I think I could handle writing.
You got this one?
Maybe, but the kid is back. The kid is here on number 6. That's going to be a tough par chip there. He got into a little bit of trouble, but This sounds really dumb. I love the backwards hat. I think it's allowing him to it's not allowing him to do anything. It's a sign that he is playing with freedom, Rick. And I was so impressed over the first 36 with how he grinded through. He could have ejected early. Bryson just made a long birdie putt there. Rory could have ejected early. He stayed in it. And he said this on Friday night. He said, I'm going to tee it up and just let it rip on the weekend. And that's what he's doing so far. I think he's got a chance to win this PGA.
Yeah, big time. You're talking about the moment, the bigger moment. I'm looking at literally this moment on number 6, right? This stretch of holes, 6, 7, 8, 9, brutal, right? Number 6, the second most difficult hole. Number 7 is the 5th most difficult hole. Number 8, 11th, and the hardest hole on the golf course, 9. Those 4 holes combined playing a stroke and a half over par. If you get through that stretch, even par, you're gaining ground to the field. You steal one? I don't know. Maybe you play him at 1 under? No, okay. Well, get through it even par. We can sound the alarms. We can run out there and see what Rory's up to.
We'll be running out there.
That is exactly what Kyle Porter is about to do. I am the only thing standing in his way. So with that, Kyle Porter, Rick Gehman, we thank you guys for your insights. An exciting day on the way on CBS and streaming on Paramount+. Third round action of the PGA Championship well underway. And there is only one place to be when it all comes to a head. On-site analysis, highlights, and reaction post-round right here on CBS Sports HQ.